Hey everybody, this is Sean Riley with Riley Real Estate and MassHomesale.com with this week's Q&A Saturday video. People have been talking to me a lot about what exactly it means to do seller financing and buying on terms. So I decided that I am going to talk a little bit more about that. We've talked about that a bit in the past, and we'll definitely link to some of those other videos with more detail. But just as a more of an overview thing, we're going to say, question is, what are the different kinds of seller financing? So just briefly recap, seller financing is essentially when somebody who is selling a property acts as the bank in some way, as you don't get paid all of your money up front. You take some of it back as a note and get paid over time, the same way you pay a mortgage. You yourself have been paying a mortgage generally on your property. So when you talk about seller finance, there's basically two major questions that you have to ask. The first one is the deed transferring at the time of the agreement, or does the seller retain it for some amount of time? If the seller retains it for some amount of time, you're talking about some sort of an installment sale, which in some places is called a contract for deed or a land contract. In Massachusetts, it's usually referred to as an installment sale. Or some sort of a lease purchase or lease option. So first talking a little bit about the installment sale, or like I said, it's called different things at different places, but essentially there's an the basic is some sort of agreed to price, and it's broken up into some number of payments. And once all the payments are made, the buyer gets the deed from the seller. Sometimes this is preferred because it's a little bit easier to take the property back if the payments aren't made, and it is just fairly simple to do. There's usually some amount of premium built in there, but it depends. There's all sorts of different ways to structure this. If it's only an installment sale that's only over a couple of months, probably not much of a premium. If it's over several years, you might pay a little bit more of a premium, which is essentially the interest that you would earn on it. The other type of stuff is a lease purchase or lease option. These are more kind of like you're a landlord, but you agree to sell the property to your tenant, or they're usually called tenant buyers, at some point in the future. Again, we did a video on lease options, and we also have a good guest post that was done on lease options a few months ago, so we'll link to both of those down below. So the second scenario is the deed transfers at the time of sale, just like any kind of cash purchase or regular bank finance purchase from a buyer would do. Excuse me. So then the second question is there already financing on the property, or is it free and clear? If it is free and clear, so there's no mortgage on the property, then it's just straight seller financing where whatever terms are agreed upon, the seller acts as the bank, and there's no other encumbrances on the property, so you can work out whatever price and interest rate and time frame or whatever you want to do as far as that goes. If there is financing, the first thing you would talk about is subject to financing. Again, we did a video on this, so we'll link to that. That's essentially where there is already a mortgage on the property and you agree to sell it to the buyer for whatever that mortgage is. So, simple numbers, we agree to buy your property for $100,000, you have $100,000 left on your mortgage, we agree to take over your mortgage, that's the end of it. It's obviously somewhat rare to have that work out exactly, so that's where our third type of transaction comes in, which is a hybrid of those two. But just before we move on, there is one important thing to know about subject twos is pretty much every mortgage written in the last 30 plus years has what's known as the due on sale clause. Excuse me. This gives the bank the right but not the obligation to call the loan due if the deed transfers. So you don't have to pay off your mortgage when you sell your property, but the loan remains in your name, and the bank could say, like, hey, you're not living at this property anymore, we want to get all of our money back that we lent to you, because we did not lend the money to this new person or entity or whoever bought the property. It come up all that much, but it certainly does happen, so you do have to be prepared for that. Again, we did a video specifically on this, so we'll link to that as well. But that is one of the dangers when you do something that involves a subject to. Alright, so finally, the last situation is where there is existing financing on the property, but the current owner has enough equity that they would get paid something more than what the current balance of the mortgage is. So then you have a whole bunch of variety of things you can do there. One is a wraparound mortgage, or in some places called an all-encompassing deed of trust, I think it is. In my state, it's a mortgage state, so we talk about wrap mortgages. Other places have trust deed states, so that's when they talk about the AITD. I think it's all-inclusive deed of trust. In this situation, you set up a brand new note that you basically make a payment to the current owner, who transfers the deed to you. They're still the bank, just like we were saying before. But within this note, you pay the existing mortgage, and part of the payment goes to the owner for their amount of equity. This does protect the owner in some ways different than some of the other options, where they technically have a first lien position because it wraps around the other one. So the bank still has their first position, but it's kind of shared with the owner in that situation. Another thing you can do is basically just set up a different note. So you take the property subject to the existing mortgage, and then you set up a second mortgage to pay the owner their equity. I personally think that's a little bit cleaner, but there are advantages and disadvantages to both parties in both of those situations. But essentially, that's pretty much it. There's the situations where the deed does not transfer immediately. There's the situations where the deeds do transfer immediately. If the deed transfers, there's situations where there is and is not financing. And basically, after you get past those two basic questions, there's pretty much an infinite way you can set up the transactions, as far as the amount of time, the amount of interest, the amount of down payments, the amount that's financed, all those different things. So seller financing is a very big topic and has many, many different offshoots, but it's also very flexible, so that does give both sides a lot of flexibility to try to figure out a particular situation that will work great for everybody. You don't have those kind of options when you sell to a retail buyer. It's pretty much, this is how much we're going to pay, and we have to get a bank loan, and if that doesn't work out, then we can't buy the property, and there's nothing we can do about it, and you don't have any flexibility to change anything either. But if you have a property that works with that, and the buyers don't have any problem getting their loan, you get your cash. That works out great for most people most of the time. In other situations, like I said, seller financing is a great tool to have, because it gives just a lot of different options for people to be able to work out a deal that can be more beneficial to both sides than just your vanilla, I'm going to buy your house with a bank loan type situation. So we definitely always are looking to buy houses. We buy for cash. We also buy for terms. Terms as in seller financing. So we set up one of these different things that we were talking about with you. If you are interested in selling a house and you're interested in seller financing, definitely get in touch with us. Go to the website, fill out a contact us form, schedule a consultation, read up on some of our other stuff, see if it is something you think you're interested in. You can always just ask us questions too. But as always, thank you for watching the video. If you have any additional questions or comments about this, like I said, watch the other videos, because I do go into more detail on a lot of these different things there, and also read some of the articles we link to. But like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. And if you have a topic that you would like to see in one of these videos, as always, feel free to post it on our Facebook page, our Twitter account, or send an email to info@masshomesale.com. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.